Welcome to Raph's Retro Comics. Focusing on specific genres in comic books can be a fun way to collect comic books. And in this episode, I'm going to take a look at comic books that prominently feature dinosaurs. And why dinosaurs? Well, dinosaurs are pretty awesome. And there are quite a few series that are worth taking a look at if you like dinosaurs. And of course, we're going to do it retro comic style. That means taking a look at comic books that were published 30 years ago or older. The first title I want to talk about is Xenozoic, or is it Xenozoic? Xenozoic Tales number 1, which was published by Kitchen Sink, and it lasted 14 issues. This is the first issue, and all the issues were written and drawn by Mark Schultz. His artwork is kind of like a throwback to like the 1950s EC artists like Al Williamson, Frank Frazetta, and like Wally Wood. If you were to combine all those awesome artists together, you get this guy. And it's a really fun kind of adventure into like this post-apocalyptic era that has prehistoric dinosaurs. Yeah, I know, it's weird. I guess that the title wasn't great, so when they reprinted this, they reprinted it as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, which came out in 1990, published under Epic. And the nice thing about Cadillacs and Dinosaurs is that when they reprinted them, they had brand new covers, but they also colorized it. Now, I get it, there's this kind of mystique about black and white artwork and independent stuff, but I actually really do prefer the colorized version. Unfortunately, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs only lasted 6 issues, and the original series lasted 14 issues. So, but I do believe the other issues are available in some kind of trade paperback form. But I cannot highly recommend enough this series. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs is, you can usually find them in the cheapy bins. However, the Xenozoic issues, especially number 1, the first print, can be hard to locate, and actually the first issue can be pricey. So those are fun to look for, but they can be definitely more difficult to track down. Let's go back a little further. This is a series called Rip in Time by Bruce Jones and Richard Corbin. And there's a wonderful issue of Eerie, I believe it's number 97, which I'll show over here. And if you can track that down, that has basically the 3 stories that they did in previous issues into one issue. But they did this wonderful series called Rip in Time that lasted 5 issues. That's basically a time travel story featuring a cop and his girlfriend and a criminal and his girlfriend as they try to navigate through their mishap adventure back in the age of dinosaurs. Richard Corbin's artwork is amazing. This was published by Fanfare Press, his own publishing company. A wonderful series that features dinosaurs with amazing artwork. Definitely worth checking out. Rip in Time. In the mid-1980s, there was something that was called the independent boom in comic books. And what happened was there were a lot of small publishers that started having a lot of success. And then we had this big landmark title hit, which you probably know as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It came out in 1984, and due to the success of this small title, it spawned a tidal wave, a massive tidal wave of indie publishers that flooded the market. Some of these are worth looking into, but the vast majority of these are not very good. I was a young collector at that time, and I got caught in the vortex of a lot of these titles. The next series I want to talk about is Nervous Rex. This is what I would call closer to a funny animal title, but the artwork, and this was also written by William Van Horn, who did the artwork, is just beautiful. And it just kind of reminds me of, if you were to look at any of the old Walt Kelly, like Pogo Possum stuff, it has that same kind of feel. Now, Blackthorn Publishing, which was another one of these kind of like flash-in-the-pan independent publishers in the mid-80s, this was actually one of their longest-running titles that lasted 10 issues. If you're lucky, you can find these in like the cheapy bins, but even if you come across like 1 or 2 issues, like pick them up just for fun. A lot of them have just, 3 or 4 stories within an issue, and it's the classic story of maybe the underachieving husband and his nag of a wife. A lot of fun and just really nice, beautiful artwork by William Van Horn, who would later go on to work for Disney. So I'm not going to just talk about these weird indie publishers from the 1980s. I also want to talk about Marvel Fanfare, specifically the first 4 issues, which feature the Savage Land, featuring kind of like the A-list of Marvel characters at that time. I had made a previous episode talking about how this was an important series not because of the content necessarily, but because of the format. This was a more expensive format that Marvel was experimenting with, and they really went all out in the first few issues, featuring amazing artwork by Michael Golden, and this was also written by Chris Claremont. The subsequent issues would also have artwork by Dave Cockrum and Paul Smith, and this story arc lasted 4 issues. Ka-Zar and the Savage Land actually have a rich history in Marvel Comics. Now, if I were to ask you, who do you think came first, Ka-Zar or Captain America? It's actually Ka-Zar. He first appeared in Marvel Comics 1, along with the Human Torch and Submariner. But it's not so much about Ka-Zar that I want to talk about, it's actually the Savage Land. This story is predominantly based in the Savage Land, and the Savage Land is where Ka-Zar lives. There's a lot of dinosaur stuff in these 4 issues, and for me, this is one of my earlier comic books that I was exposed to, so I remember reading the first 4 issues so many times. It was just a lot of fun, and with the great artwork, the higher quality paper, the presentation of it all, Marvel Fanfare was a great and fun series. How could I not include Jack Kirby's Devil Dinosaur? Jack Kirby is considered to be the greatest of all time, and I am of that camp, because if you look at his body of work, you can't really compare him to anybody else. However, that being said, there are his detractors, and they will often point at a title like Devil Dinosaur. And yeah, sure, his 1970 stuff is not always easy to read. I mean, I've tried to read Kirby's Fourth World stuff years ago, and honestly, I'm still trying to read it. It's not the easiest read, but Devil Dinosaur, I think, was a title that was more geared towards kids, and it certainly looked like he had fun drawing it, but maybe not one of his better efforts. This has become almost a bit of a key cult first issue, because it is the first appearance of Devil Dinosaur, and they have since made other Devil Dinosaur comic books featuring Moon Girl, as well as an animated series. But this is actually Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur. So, a fun, easy series to complete, 9 issues, and you can usually find these in the cheap, well, maybe the first issue not so much anymore, but it's not a difficult run to complete. Okay, I might get into trouble with this one, because this is Godzilla, and Godzilla is not really a dinosaur. Yes, I understand. If you were to combine a Stegosaurus, a Tyrannosaurus, give it some giant growth and fire breathing, presto, you would have Godzilla. Now, please don't kill me in the comments below. And this is the last issue of Godzilla. So, a lot of the issues of Godzilla are kind of fun because they feature a whole bunch of different Marvel appearances, mostly from S.H.I.E.L.D., but these later issues also feature the Avengers, and they're constantly trying to find a way of getting rid of Godzilla. There's even a few really funny issues where he shrunk down to a little cat, I guess. It's become a popular series to collect. The first issue of this is now actually quite expensive and high grade. My favorite dinosaur of all time? Well, it's gotta be Dino, right? Dino of the Flintstones. These are Charlton books from the 1970s. Impossible to find in nice shape. Sure, these aren't really worth very much. People don't really look for these, but if I ever do come across these, certainly pick them up because the nostalgia factor is really strong. I love the Flintstones, watched it all growing up. Anytime I come across Flintstones and related comic books, and if they're cheap enough, and they usually are, and if they're in nice shape, I'll pick them up. I just want to show you one more cover of Dino. This is number 11, just because, you don't see this kind of stuff very often, and they're kind of fun to show. One thing I want to point out is that Charltons from this time are slightly taller than your average comic book. So when you do come across stuff like this, often you'll find the top edges just beat the hell because they were taller than the other comic books from that period. When they put in their back issues, often the tops will just get hammered over time. The War That Time Forgot. Star Spangled War Stories, starting with issue number 90, started to feature this series called The War That Time Forgot. And in this series, featured basically the Army, the Navy, whatever, submarines and whatnot, fighting dinosaurs. It's kind of the classic tale of finding a mysterious island and hearing that, oh, one of the patrols went missing. Oh, a second patrol went missing. Well, we better go investigate and find out what happened to them. And of course, it's dinosaurs. These are a lot of fun. Now, these are best read 1 or 2 issues here and there. You don't want to read a full run of 10 issues in one sitting because, yeah, a lot of the stories are very similar. I love the covers of these. This issue 134 actually has early artwork by Neil Adams. Now, these are hard to find in nice shape, and there are a lot of collectors out there that love this series. And why not? I mean, dinosaurs, tanks, boats, it's great. Robert Kanigher did the majority of writing for the war titles for DC in the 1960s, and maybe in the 1950s as well too. And from what I've read or listened to in interviews, he was a formidable person to deal with. I did a previous episode on Kanigher and Joe Kubert's run on Enemy Ace, and you can check it out over here. I want to show you a few other covers. This is a cover done by Joe Kubert. I should mention now the previous one was done by Russ Heath. This is issue number 136. And this is a copy of Star Spangled War Stories number 137. Just awesome stuff. I love these old dinosaur issues of Star Spangled War Stories. Often you can find these beat up pretty cheap, and I highly recommend just picking a couple up and just enjoying them for what they are. The last series I want to talk about is Turok Son of Stone. This is perhaps the longest running series that featured dinosaurs. It came out in 1956, and it lasted 130 issues. It's a story of Turok and Andar who get lost through a cave, and when they come out the other side, they come out in this land where dinosaurs exist. In the 1990s, Turok was revived, as well as many other Gold Key titles like Dr. Solar and Magnus Robot Fighter, as part of Valiant. Those titles were immensely popular at that time, and they've since come up with more Turok stories. So he is an enduring character that somehow managed to stay in the comic mainstream after so many years. I'm surprised that actually even the original series from Dell, which then became Gold Key Western Publishing, lasted so many issues. And I think it's a testament to their stories and the artwork. And as well, maybe the dinosaur factor. Like, certainly dinosaurs are very popular with kids. And, you know, they had these marvelous painted covers. And what's not to like, you know? You have these amazing adventure stories with dinosaurs. This is a copy of Turok number 24, dated 1961. And you can generally find these pretty cheap, especially lower grade copies. If you like this video, you can check out some of my videos over here. I really like talking about old comic books. Now go out and grab a copy of Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. It's really worth checking out.